There we go.
All right. It's Friday, and it's Friday the 13th. Okay. Sorry, we're moving on. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our water quality regulations webinar focused on Petaluma equine facilities on today, Friday, January 13th. Yes. Okay. So just a brief agenda here for our time slot we have planned for our 1-hour webinar today. My name is Kari Wester. I'll do an introduction to the Sonoma Resource Conservation District, who we are and what we do. Then Morgan Williams from the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board will give an overview of the current and recent water quality regulations that will impact equine facilities within the Petaluma River Watershed. And that will pretty much be the meat of the webinar today. Then I will follow up with an overview of resources that the RCD has available to help folks comply with this permit. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. I am okay if folks want to interrupt me and ask questions throughout. I'll let Morgan indicate how she prefer to answer questions when she talks. And then I'm sure that you heard the recording, but we are recording this webinar for folks who weren't able to attend today. It will be available. We'll link it to our YouTube page and send that out to folks that are registered. And so it'll give you a little bit more time if you want to go back and look at some of the details that Morgan presents on. So just quickly, there's not many of us, so this won't take too long, but if we can just do some brief introductions, just your name, where you are, and maybe just your connection to the equine community. I can start. My name is Kari Wester. I am a project manager with the Sonoma Resource Conservation District. I am in Santa Rosa. I live in Santa Rosa. And my connection to the equine community is through my work with regard to providing technical and financial assistance to horse facilities. And I'd like to introduce my counterpart at the RCD, Ari, if you have a moment.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ari DeMarco. I'm another project manager with Sonoma RCD. I am in Santa Rosa, and my connection to the equine community is also through the same professional avenues that Kari has. So I'm here to help with this issue and with others.
And Morgan, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Morgan Williams. I am an environmental scientist at the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm tuning in today from my current residence in Stockton, but our office is in Oakland, and my connection to the equine community is also through my work. I administer our Confined Animal Facilities program here at the Regional Water Board. It is a region-wide program, but a lot of our focus is up in the North Bay.
Kari, can I pick on you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name's Terry Church, and I live in Petaluma. I'm a horse trainer, and I run some workshops with the organization Daily Acts on sustainable equine management and regenerative farming and ranching practices.
Thank you. Looks like there's a phone number.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm just wondering if they're the 206 phone number wanted to introduce themselves.
Yeah, hello, 206 here. This is Michael Lennox with Holiday Ranch. I offer lamb and wool and ecological services, so kind of restoration and drainage projects in particular, sometimes to benefit water quality, hopefully. So looking for more information. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And then Abby?
Hi there, I'm just a horse owner in the East Bay, and I have been sort of negatively impacted in the past by what I would say is regulations around the horse industry. And I also have my horse out in pasture, so I would be interested in just seeing what's out there and what we could do to improve our management.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that you're looking at a funding acknowledgement slide.
It looks like Sotoko Mills also joined us.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Satoko Mills. I am the Environmental Monitoring Coordinator with the Watershed Project, which is based in Richmond in California. And I monitor the water quality, like 38 sites at the 9th stream in Contra Costa County. And I just wonder how the other place in the Bay Area, the water quality look like, or what the people doing the like improvements, the water quality or environmental improvement. So I'm excited to having being here and to listen to get some ideas of the health of the creek. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Just a brief funding acknowledgement. The funding for this webinar and the assistance that the RCD is providing is coming from the US EPA through the State Water Resource Control Board through their 319H grant program. So a little bit of detail map on the RCDs within Sonoma County up here in the North Bay. Here is Sonoma County. There's 2 RCDs, Sonoma RCD, which covers about 919,000 acres, or about 85% of Sonoma County, from Mendocino County border at the top to San Pablo Bay at the bottom. And then our neighboring RCD is Gold Ridge RCD, which you can see outlined in red there. The different shades of color on this map here represent different watersheds that we work in. And today the focus is going to be on the dark green watershed at the bottom there, the Petaluma River. A brief intro into the Sonoma Resource Conservation District. So for some folks that might not be familiar with it, the RCDs were created in the 1940s to assist landowners with educational, technical, financial resources for soil and water conservation projects and programs. Essentially, we came and were formed out of the Dust Bowl as a more kind of grassroots on the ground technical assistance provider for landowners. The RCDs in Sonoma County have been around for about 75 plus years. So we've been providing assistance to landowners for a pretty long time within Sonoma County. The RCDs are non-regulatory. We do provide assistance with regulatory compliance. However, we don't have any regulatory oversight when it comes to enforcement of any regulations. We are local and a special district, similar to what fire departments are considered. We are a liaison between landowners and regulatory agencies, and that's kind of the role that we're playing today to kind of bridge that gap between regulatory agencies and landowners who need to comply with regulations. One of the unique things about the RCD is that we can identify and actually solicit funding sources for our programs. Specifically, we're able to, depending on what landowners in our community are interested in, we can pursue grant funding specifically for those projects. And we are, I think we get a little bit of property tax revenue, but we are almost exclusively competitively grant funded. So all the grants that we write are basically what provide our funding. And we have several staff, I think we have about 14 staff right now with a variety of natural resource and agricultural disciplines, from water quality, forestry. We have 2 engineers on staff, in addition to erosion control specialists. One of the programs that I'll mention today that our RCD offers is our Land Smart Planning Program. It's a regional program here in the North Bay that covers Sonoma Resource Conservation District, Goldridge, RCD, Napa County, and Mendocino counties. It was originally developed to focus on water quality. We've actually expanded it to a variety of land uses and other focuses such as carbon sequestration, but today we'll be focusing mostly on water quality. So the purpose of our planning, we assist land managers and landowners in accomplishing their natural resource goals and meeting or exceeding environmental regulations where applicable. And we also provide technical assistance and in some cases financial support to plan and design and implement those conservation practices that are identified in plans. Our Land Smart plans cover a variety of topics. These ones are specific, mostly some of them are applicable to equine, but this is what's in our equine template. So for example, pasture management, we go over things like maintaining vegetated cover, reducing overgrazing, rotational grazing, and managing for noxious weeds. Manure management, we look at how manure is managed on the site, how it's stored, and how it's applied to land if applicable. Your stormwater drainage and confinement areas. Basically, we look at ways to keep clean water or rainwater separate from manured areas. So this can be anything like looking at drainage from roofs, installing gutters and downspouts, and diverting that clean water to a clean drainage area and away from any manured areas. We also look at roads and crossings. These are more typical on vineyards and larger rangeland properties, but essentially we're looking at vulnerabilities with regard to erosion near culverts, near road crossings, and the road drainage itself. Wash water is very specific to equine facilities. This may or not be happening in recent years with the drought, but an area where we want to make sure that any chemicals or soaps that are used during horse washing is kept away from clean water drainages. And then just in general, Land Smart plans not only provide recommendations for future practices where there are potential issues, but we also help document what is working on the facility. One of the areas that I like to highlight, because I feel like it's a very valuable tool for landowners, is a mapping component of the plans. It's very helpful if you're a visual person. You can see a list of all the different features and components that we map on properties, anywhere from looking at the different soil types to indicating where stormwater flows and drains, and in addition to recommendations for photo monitoring locations. Again, the maps are something that landowners have indicated they find very valuable, especially when you have a business where you may have folks not familiar with your property coming onto the property, either visitors, contractors, or someone, that you talking to your staff about maintenance and management of the facility. So it's a good way for folks to become familiar with the facility. All of our templates and information on our Land Smart plans can be found on our landsmart.org website. They're available in both Word and PDF, along with general resources on each of the different land uses. We have vineyard, forest land, rangeland, and confined animal or equine. And now, that's the end of what I was going to talk about this morning, this afternoon, but if anybody had any questions for me, otherwise we would move on to talking to Morgan. So I'll just pause for a moment and see if there is any specific questions for me. Okay, no worries. Morgan, if you are ready to share your screen, then we can move more into kind of the meat of the presentation.
Okay, can you see the full page presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. I have a kind of double screen situation. My Zoom is in front of me, but then my presentation's off to the side, so I'll be facing that way. But my name is Morgan Williams, and I'm an environmental scientist at the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. I help administer the board's Confined Animal Facility program. And we have a mix of people here today, though I hope some of you are here because you've been notified of the need to enroll in this program and permit the Confined Animal Facilities General Waste Discharge Requirements. This presentation is geared for that audience, and it's also being recorded for YouTube for future enrollees to reference. So many of the things I'll cover today will be directly related to that, but for those of you who are not owners or operators of a commercial horse boarding facility in Petaluma, I hope you still find parts of this presentation valuable. At the very least, you will leave with a greater understanding of the Regional Water Board's Commercial Confined Animal Facility program. So today I'm going to be providing an overview of this permit, including a brief background of the permit program and an explanation of why it now applies to Petaluma. I'll also be walking through how to respond to your notice to enroll if you are someone who's received that. And I'll be going over how to fill out the notice of intent form, which serves as your enrollment form for the CAF program. I'll also run through an overview of the permit's requirements, which can be summarized in 3 main sections. There's a surface water monitoring component, facility design and management requirements, and annual reporting requirements, as well as required inspections by water board staff. And there are a lot of details within the requirements of this permit that I won't be covering today just because we don't have time, but I'm going to be giving a summary of them, and I'll also be showing you where to find those details, as well as a couple of ways to seek assistance with working towards compliance if you are someone who has to enroll in this permit. So I say feel free to ask questions in the chat along the way. Ari with Sonoma RCD will keep track of them for me as we go along, and we can go through them at the end if there are any. And I'll do my best to answer both chat questions and also raised hands if anyone just wants to ask me a question directly. So jumping into it, background. The state of California has its own minimum statewide standards for all types of confined animal facilities, which is called Title 27. I have the full definition here, but in short, the state considers confined animal facilities any place where domestic animals are enclosed or held and where feeding is by means other than grazing. In general, Title 27 addresses manure as a pollutant, and it requires facilities to prevent clean water from coming in contact with animal waste, and it requires operators to collect and contain all of their animal waste on site. Local governments typically implement these minimum standards. So, for example, if you're among the Petaluma horse boarding community, your Sonoma County horse boarding zoning permit upholds these standards. The Water Board's Confined Animal Facilities, or CAF, general permit expands upon these state minimum standards for facilities that need higher regulation or regulatory standards. So you might ask yourself, what kind of facilities would require more stringent regulations? Well, the Regional Water Board's Confined Animal program started with just regulating dairies. This map on the right here shows the entire San Francisco Bay region, and dairies, any dairy within this entire area, most of them are in Sonoma and Marin. If you're a member of that community, you're well familiar with that. Those facilities have a long history of being regulated through earlier iterations of this same order. Over time, the dairies in the regions have kept up with the evolving standards, and their contributions to fecal pollution have lessened. And while that was happening, and as technology improved, water board studies started getting hits for other animals contributing to fecal bacteria impairments. So back in 2016, the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Board approved this order, the CAF General Permit, that would be a continuation of regulations for dairies across the region. But this order also now allowed the board to apply the permit standards to additional confined animal facilities. And the order gave the board authority to do so on the basis that livestock were identified as a categorical pollutant source in an impaired watershed. Meaning that an additional type of confined animal facility could be regulated under this permit if it is thoroughly documented that they're a significant source of pollution in a heavily polluted water body. You can imagine where I'm going with this. One of the water board's responsibilities is to regularly assess and determine what water bodies are polluted to the point where their basic functions are impaired. And the highest priorities of these polluted water bodies for them, our office developed what we call a TMDL, which is in large part a study that determines the sources of that pollutant and also develops a plan for addressing it from all feasible angles. So, for example, if an area has an E. coli problem in its creeks, the study will determine whether the source is human, from dogs, cows, goats, horses, etc. And if an animal source is identified and it corresponds to a commercial confined animal facility type within an area, usually a watershed, then the CAF general permit is triggered and those facilities get pulled in. And then the permit aims to address the problem by requiring facilities to control the source of the pollutant, which is most often manure or sometimes sediment. And it does this through its additional facility design and management standards that are, again, a bit more thorough than the state minimum standards. So why Petaluma? Petaluma River was listed as impaired due to elevated fecal indicator bacteria levels, or E. coli. Its levels of fecal bacteria are harmful to the health of humans recreating it, both in water contact recreation activities like swimming or fishing, but also for activities that are just in proximity to water, like boating and picnicking. And in 2021, the US EPA approved the Petaluma River Bacteria TMDL, which was in part the study that identified horse fecal bacteria as a categorical pollutant source in the river, before the river. The source study in the TMDL was conducted across the whole watershed and over various seasons. It also identified a bunch of other sources of fecal bacteria, like non-dairy related rangeland, municipal sewers, plus private septic tanks, dogs, homeless encampments. But within the different seasons sampled, there was consistently 94% to 100% of the water samples that came back positive for horse fecal bacteria. So all of this is included just to say and let you know that there are projects across Petaluma aiming to address all of the sources contributing to the river's bacteria problem. And the CAF permit that now applies to horse boarding operations in Petaluma is just a piece of that overall puzzle. If you're interested in that study, you can Google Petaluma TMDL and scroll down to, there's a link for a staff report, and that has all the study information. So, as I explained a moment ago, when these studies identify a confined livestock as a pollutant source, it triggers the CAF permit, and now the CAF general permit is a mandatory permit for commercial horse boarding operations in the Petaluma River watershed. Commercial means any non-residential confined animal facility that conducts activities on site that require a local business license. So in Petaluma, this would be your Sonoma County horse boarding permit. The community has been notified of this, and I'm now going to give an overview of how to respond to the notice to enroll that people have received. And to start, I'd like to give a little intro to our website and where you can find it, and all the resources detailing the requirements, as well as the forms related to compliance. So the Regional Water Board webpage is not the easiest to navigate. So for the sake of ease, I've just decided to share this DIY shortcut to finding the program page. On almost any search engine, you can just type in San Francisco Confined Animal Facilities, and it's the first result. The CAF program page, little red arrows pointing to it, San Francisco Bay Regional Water Body Quality Control Board. Our name is so lengthy, I have a hard time saying it sometimes.
I also just put a
And-
link to that in the chat if anyone wants to
Perfect.
click on that.
Thanks, Ari. I was just gonna say, you can open the website page now if you like, and if you are someone who has to enroll in this permit, I recommend bookmarking it for later reference, because it will be your best friend as you go through this enrollment process. So again, search this phrase, San Francisco Confined Animal Facilities, click on the first result, and it'll take you to the CAF program page that looks like this, or you can click on the link that Ari shared in the chat. And what you're going to do is scroll down to the section titled Current Permits, Forms, Fact Sheets, and Regulations. It looks like this without the red text. And this section is where you can find all the permit documents relevant to enrollment and compliance. If you scroll, this is what the top of the section looks like. And if you scroll a little further down, you'll come across this body of links. These are all the documents related to the permit. So for enrollment, people are going to look at these two, Attachment F, the Notice of Intent form, and Attachment K, Title 27, 3-15. The Attachment K is just to be used as a reference sheet when filling out a section of the Notice of Intent form, and I'll touch on that a bit more later. So the main enrollment document is Attachment F, the Notice of Intent form. And I'm going to take a moment to quickly walk through the more difficult sections. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube, on the Sonoma RCD YouTube page. So I'll be moving quickly because there's a fair amount to cover, but you will be able to reference this all later for those of you who this is relevant to. So how do you enroll? You're going to submit by mail or online a filled out Notice of Intent form and a $200 state application fee. The deadline to enroll without potential penalty is February 28th, 2023. I've included this table that might look familiar to those who received an enrollment notice. This table is included in the enrollment notification letters and emails. And for those watching on YouTube later in time, you can just pause and reference this. But it walks you through how to submit these either by mail or online. And this is what the front page of the Notice of Intent form looks like. It says Notice of Intent at the top, and it includes the name of the order and some additional details. And the first section that people have to fill out is this tier section at the bottom here, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And that tends to be a bit confusing for people. The Confined Animal Facilities General Permit in our region differentiates different types of facilities through this tiered system. The tiers are like buckets that allow us to sort out which requirements apply to different types of facilities, and each tier has its own set of requirements. So Tier 1 are confined animal facilities that do not utilize liquid waste retention ponds. Tier 2 are CAFs that do utilize liquid waste retention ponds, and a liquid waste retention pond is what you can see in this picture here on the right. The little arrows pointing to a photo of it, you can see it's very liquidy. This is typical of dairies. They use these engineered ponds to collect and store their manure because cow manure is a lot more liquidy compared to other types of livestock. And all of our region's dairies are in Tier 2. If your facility does not have an engineered feature like this, which I assume most horse boarding facilities do not, you fall into the Tier 1 category, which we'll be reviewing the requirements of today. And we also have a third tier. It is reserved for high-risk problematic facilities, and it requires it requires our executive officer to determine that this facility is so high risk it needs to be pulled into that group. This does not apply to anyone here today, but it's on the form, so I thought I'd take a moment to explain it. So on the notice of intent form, horse boarders will check off tier 1. The rest of the first page of the notice of intent form has a section to fill out your contact info, preferred method of communication. It's fairly straightforward. And then the second page of this document also contains additional sections for basic facility information, your address, operation type. You would be selecting a horse boarding facility, the numbers of animals that you have, etc. And beneath all of the facility information are some more sections that are a little bit less straightforward. Section F, do your facilities have 700 or more mature cows, 500 horses, or over 10,000 sheep? Oh, hold on, my computer is lagging. Okay. Yeah, so this section or this question is for people who have over 500 horses, which I don't believe we have in the Petaluma watershed, but if we do, there are additional components that you'll need upon enrollment. So if this applies to you, get in touch with me and we can discuss this further. My contact information will be shown at the end of this presentation. But for most people, this will be a no. And then section G, type of containment structures for waste, including manure, litter, silage, leachate, processed water. This section is just trying to get at how you collect and store your animals' manure. Some of you may have a trailer or a dumpster that you dump your waste into when you clean your stalls and corrals. Other folks might just stockpile it on an open section of land. In this section, we just want a few words to describe how manure is stored. And if it's hauled off, I'd ask that you'd also note that on that first line. And then the section also has a line for total storage capacity of the above structure. If the storage container that you use, if you do use one, is rectangular, I'd say grab a measuring tape and measure the length, width, and height, multiply the 3 by each other and estimate the volume for that total storage capacity. The form notes tons or gallons, but you can write on there cubic feet. We just want to get an idea and have an easy, quick reference on this form of how your manure management is currently being done. And if you happen to stockpile your waste, I know it's harder to estimate, it's okay to leave this section blank. We know that if we see stockpile or compost, that's why that section is left blank. And then, like I said, we'd also ask you to note how often waste is hauled off or if you compost on site. So here's a quick example of how that section can be filled out. Section 8 beneath it is pretty straightforward. And the other potentially confusing area is section I. So this is asking for the total acres under control of the discharger available for land application of manure, etc. If you do apply your manure or your composted manure, enter in this area just how big the area is that you may spread on. If you have a neighbor who allows you to spread manure on their pasture, also include that in this section. If you don't land apply, leave it blank. Now we're on page 3 of the notice of intent form, and at the top of this page, it asks people to note the receiving water body. So as it states, does your facilities clean stormwater flow directly and or indirectly into waters of the state, a stream, river, lake, ocean, etc.? Circle 1. If it is indirect, explain. So if your facility is on a named stream or creek, like San Antonio Creek in Petaluma, note that here, and then in the explanation section, try to describe how your stormwater flows there if it's clear to you. There's an example included on the form. If your facility is not near any creek or stream or the main stem of the Petaluma River, it is perfectly fine to just write indirectly to the Petaluma River. All the horse boarding facilities in the Petaluma River Watershed have been notified of their need to enroll in the permit because the facility is on land that washes into streams, creeks, or drainages that eventually lead to the Petaluma River. And that's why that statement is true. So again, if you are unsure or if you're not near any obvious water body or drainage, just put in here indirectly to Petaluma River. If you are near a creek, but you're still, maybe doesn't have a name, or you're kind of unsure of how to word how it is connected to your facility, contact me and I can provide assistance with working through filling out this section accurately. This next section, section 6, is also another confusing one for people. And I think that is largely because a lot of the points are geared towards dairies. And I'd also like to state and kind of give the disclaimer that you don't have to have every single one of these items checked off. This section, implementation and order provision, or implementation of order provisions, it is geared at getting an idea of where your facility is at the time of enrollment. So section A, statewide minimum standards for confined animal facilities, check if true. That is referring to those Title 27 regulations that I was talking about earlier. And if you think back to when I showed a picture of that list of documents on the Confined Animal Facilities program page, that second highlighted document was attachment K. And that attachment lists out what those Title 27 standards are. And you can check if that is true for your facility, if your facility meets those standards at this point in time. It is okay if your facility does not meet those standards at this point in time. Compliance will be obtained through enrollment in this permit. And you have 2 years upon enrolling to become in compliance with this order. So again, this is just a section to try and get an idea of where your facility's at the time of enrollment. And then the bullet points below are the same. Just read through them. The first 2 are specific to dairies, so they will be irrelevant for horse boarding facilities. But check the ones that are true for your operation. And then lastly, on the 3rd page, there is this first section, the monitoring program section. It's just a statement that you will review the monitoring requirements of this order. I'll talk in a minute about what those are. It asks you to specify how your surface water monitoring will be done, either through a monitoring group or individually. And the monitoring group option was included in the order because at the time of its adoption, the dairy community had an existing monitoring group that they wanted to use for permit compliance. At this time, the Petaluma community does not have a group monitoring plan organized. So to start, everyone will be checking off the individual option. It is absolutely possible to put together a monitoring group if someone's interested in it. It can be as big or as small as people prefer. Like it can cover just 5 facilities that are close by to one another. It's up to enrollees whether or not they would like to pursue developing a group. And if you are interested in that, reach out to me and I'll set up a time for us to discuss with other program staff what the group monitoring options are. But again, for now, everyone will just mark off the individual surface water monitoring option. And then section 8, landowner notification and certification. If someone other than the landowner leases or operates the horse boarding facility, then this section needs to be filled out. And lastly, to wrap it all up, the notice of intent finishes with a statement certifying that the provisions of the CAF general permit will be reviewed by responsible parties and met in time. So that's the notice of intent form. And once your notice of intent form is complete, it will need to be mailed or scanned and emailed to our office along with that $200 state application fee. Again, there's this table walking you through those 2 submittal options. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can pause and read through it or reference your notification letter. Also of note, if you have over 75 horses, the state of California requires an annual fee when enrolled in the CAF permit. This fee is set by the State Water Resource Control Board. We don't have control over it, but they do adjust it periodically, and the annual fee will not begin until after your first year of enrollment in this permit. So if you have over 75 horses, this next winter you will be billed. And I've included a table in the bottom right corner showing the 2023 fee amounts for, or based on how many animal units you have. And now I'm going to run through an overview of the compliance requirements. So for Tier 1 facilities, over the next 2 years, starting this year, you'll be working towards compliance and submitting annual reports to us, documenting your progress. The compliance requirements boil down into 3 to 4 components. We require enrollees to develop a surface water monitoring plan, a facility management plan, also known as a ranch water quality plan. And then there's those annual reporting requirements, and being enrolled in this permit also makes you subject to inspections. And then if you have over 50 acres of active pasture, you also need to develop a grazing management plan. The CAF permit specifies that the surface water monitoring plan is due 1 year after enrollment. So over the next year, enrollees will develop a plan according to the permit to annually collect 3 storm samples per winter season. And enrollees have 1 year to prepare that plan and the necessary materials, and sampling will begin the following winter after that plan is due. And then the ranch water quality plan is due 2 years after enrollment. The grazing management plan, if necessary, is also due 2 years after enrollment. And starting this fall, enrollees will begin submitting annual reports to the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Board. So this report is a form that we've developed, and in early fall, we send out reminder letters to everybody about this requirement, along with a copy of the latest form. And it's designed to help us track your progress towards compliance, and also to help us track and yourself track the effectiveness of your facility's design and management measures at preventing manure from leaving the facility. Additionally, enrollment in the permit comes with being subject to periodic compliance inspections, as I noted. These inspections happen on a rolling basis. The CAF program inspects a handful of facilities each year, so enrollees will only be subject to these every few years, and the water board staff members will reach out to you when it's time to schedule a compliance inspection. And in general, compliance is obtained through meeting the standards of the order, which are listed in this document on our webpage. It's also obtained through developing and implementing the required management plans, which I've outlined here in red, the ones that are pertinent to Tier 1 facilities. Attachment A explains the monitoring and reporting requirements. Attachment B explains the ranch water quality plan. And attachment E is for those folks with over 50 acres of pasture. And it walks you through the grazing management plan. And then annually, you'll be reporting the status of your compliance through that annual report. And I'm not going to dive into the 3 attachments outlined in red, because those detail the main requirements for your operation under this permit. So again, attachment A covers the monitoring requirements. Enrollees have 1 year to develop this plan, as I said, and there's no group monitoring currently available in Petaluma, but reach out to us if you'd like to schedule an intake meeting to talk about your options with that. And then the plan must be completed by March 1st of 2024 for Petaluma horse boarding facilities. And then you will be preparing to start your surface water monitoring in October of 2024. And all the details on how to do that and what the plan must include and what materials you need, it's all included in attachment A. The surface water monitoring is a requirement both to inform you and the regional water board on how effective the facility's design and management measures are. It'll kind of indicate whether they're effectively preventing manure from leaving the facility. So it's intended to tell you or just to kind of indicate if there's a problem area on the site that might need to be addressed. It's not a type of monitoring where you're going to be fined or someone's going to come after you if you do happen to get a hit. It's written into the order that if you do get a hit, you're required to address it and determine what the source of the problem was. But this kind of gives you the flexibility to address any potential water quality concerns and document how you've been being a responsible facility operator or owner. And then also in attachment A, on top of the water quality sampling side of things, there are some requirements related to doing regular visual inspections. It talks about the annual report and non-compliance reporting and record keeping. For the non-compliance reporting, under this permit, owners and operators are required to report violations of the permit to the water board within 24 hours of an incident, and attachment A has all the details on what that applies to and how to do so. Next, there's the ranch water quality plan. Enrollees have 2 years to develop this, and as I mentioned earlier, the CAF permit has specific facility design and management requirements. Through developing this plan, enrollees will identify which of those requirements are already met and which are outstanding, and they will develop a plan to meet those requirements over time. A fair amount of the ranch plan development process can be done on your own, but there are sections that require a qualified professional. So I'll take this moment to plug Sonoma RCD. They are currently offering assistance that Kari will talk a bit more about later with developing the ranch water quality plan, the cost of which is covered by a grant that they've received from our office and the US EPA. They also have a LandSmart template that Kari kind of called out before that makes organizing all the information in your ranch water quality plan a little bit easier. And I highly encourage members of the Petaluma Equine community to reach out to the RCD if you are interested in this assistance. You do have 2 years to complete the plan, but the grant funding is only available through this year.
Morgan, I just want to do a quick time check. I know we
Mhm.
started late, so we'll continue with the presentation until we're done. But if
Mhm.
folks need to sign off, that's fine. We've mentioned this will be recorded, so if you need to come back and look at the remainder of it, you can do that. But I just wanted to note that we'll likely be going past 1 o'clock.
Yes, definitely. And I only have a few more slides left for those who would like to stay. Attachment B also covers a little more specific about what the attachment B covers. It details the permit's minimum pollution prevention standards that the facility has to meet. And it also includes an outline of the ranch water quality plan. And the ranch water quality plan has to include a facility description and map, a facility evaluation and improvement plan, and operation and maintenance and management practices. Again, a lot of this can be done on your own, but some of these requirements do need a qualified professional to complete them. And the RCD is offering help with that right now. And then for those who this applies to, if you have over 50 acres of active pasture, I'll briefly say that attachment E covers the grazing management plan requirements. It's essentially a document that lists out all your best management practices that are taking place on your pasture land. And there's also a few required regular visual inspections for the operator to perform and record. The management plan focuses on addressing erosion and sediment sources and nutrient and pathogens from livestock, as well as riparian zone protection. So check out attachment E if that applies to you. And lastly, we have the annual report component of being in this permit. So starting this year, enrollees will be required to submit an annual report by November 30th. It is due November 30th of every year. And the purpose of this report is to update the water board on your compliance status and progress. It also documents what the facility has made the required preparations for entering the rainy season, which you can find out more about in those attachments that I mentioned earlier. And it's your way of submitting your water monitoring results from the previous year to the water board. The first annual report will not have the surface water monitoring component to it. And then again, the reminders that we send out include a copy of this form. I have a photo of the first page here, but you'll learn more about that this year. So again, all the enrollment documents and details about compliance and facility requirements are available on the Confined Animal Facility Program page. And the easiest way to find that is to search San Francisco Confined Animal Facilities. The current permits, forms, fact sheets, and regulations section will be your best friend. And you can take a screenshot of this slide to kind of help you figure out which of these links are relevant to you if you're a horse boarding facility. And then this slide just summarizes the major deadlines for your first 2 years being enrolled in this permit. The annual report is due later this year in November. A year from now, or a little more than a year from now, the monitoring and reporting plan will need to be complete, and that will lay out and help you prepare for collecting water monitoring samples that winter of 2024. And then 2 years from now, the ranch water quality plan is due. And then after that compliance window, you will just be regularly submitting annual reports and implementing your management plans, and water board compliance inspections will occur every few years. So thank you all for sticking through that. I know that was a ton of information, and now we can get to any questions if there were any.
Does anyone have any questions for Morgan? Feel free to unmute yourself if you do. We'll just pause for a moment. Okay. Well, let's just move on. Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, sure. I could think of a few, but one, maybe I missed it, was if I have horses in the Petaluma watershed, or is it just if I board horses?
Yeah, so this requirement applies to commercial horse boarding facilities. So I know there's a lot of residential properties where people own their own horses. These regulations do not apply to them. This is if you have a business license, like if you're a horse boarding or training academy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the criteria? I'm sorry, I was late. I had the wrong time in my calendar, so my bad. But what's the criteria for this in terms of boarding? So, for example, we have a boarding permit, but we don't board. They're all personal horses on our property. So I think we are probably flagged because we have a boarding permit that's grandfathered in with the property for 30 years or some. So what's the criteria?
Yeah, our criteria is we cover everything under the umbrella of commercial. So that's non-residential confined animal facilities that conduct activities that require a local business license. And that gets a little tricky in Petaluma. The Sonoma County office does require a horse boarding permit. And so that is how we got our list of enrollees. But there are kind of further stipulations and technicalities if you'd like to look, or if you'd like to talk about whether or not and figure out whether or not this applies to your permit. give me a call after this presentation and we can kind of go through the details of how your facility operates, if it is a commercial operation or not, technically speaking. We can sort that out.
All right. Thank you, Morgan.
Mhm.
Charlie, just to follow up on that, there is a avenue of oh gosh, Morgan, what is it called? Something about applicability of non-applicability.
Oh, yes, it's called a notice of non-applicability. That was included in the enrollment notification as well. That's yeah.
So I'm just thinking, Charlie, in your case, that may be an avenue if, after you talk to Morgan to indicate that even though you may have this license, from your point of view, you may feel that it's not applicable. And so then they can evaluate your facility based on that.
Yep.
Got it.
Exactly. That is the process that we would get through. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kari. And I know I still owe you a phone call.
Okay. Okay. So in just trying to respect folks' time, I'm going to just finish up on providing information on the funding source that we have. So Morgan, do you want to stop sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can do this a little bit more streamlined than last time. Okay, are folks seeing a slide that says funding opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So as Morgan mentioned, the RCD did require a 319H grant in order to not only provide educational assistance through like webinars and workshops, but also to assist folks with the ranch water quality plan component of compliance needed for facilities in Petaluma where it's applicable to. So again, this applies to the commercial facilities within Petaluma River Watershed. I will say that the permit applies to commercial facilities, but our funding, we can work with folks that don't need to comply with it and are just curious about developing their own plan for their own use. We can still work with you and use this funding for your facilities as well. And again, it's assisting with the development of the ranch water quality plans, what Morgan referred to as attachment B. We do have this funding for 1 more year. However, it does take some time to develop plans. So I would say if you're interested, or if you know other folks that may be interested, to have them reach out so that we would be able to confirm that we have funding, and then just enough time to complete the plan by next February. And then again, this is just a reminder map of the Petaluma area, the watershed that we're referring to. So this is definitely where our funding would need to be spent within that watershed. The process with us is basically just to reach out to us to express interest. We do develop a agreement with a landowner that kind of outlines access, because we will be requesting access to meet with you and go over the facility operations and do a tour of the facility. We do require a 15% cost share from the landowner in order to develop the plans. Typically that's estimated between 500 and 1,000. It's actually been more on the lower end of that estimate. And we do have a cost share waiver available for folks that financially can't cover that. And then just a reminder to reach out to us, as we do have limited time availability to complete these plans. This is my contact information, and then Ari DeMarco, who's also on the webinar today, is assisting with this program. I'm going to very quickly show you our website. And again, hoping this is helpful for folks to review later. Morgan had mentioned our template, and I just want to show you where it is. It's our LandSmart website. We have various versions of templates for different types of land uses. This is the Equine Confined Animals Facility one. It's available in a Word doc and a fillable PDF. You can click on it and it kind of just gives you a sense of what would need to be evaluated as far as the plan goes. Morgan mentioned that you are more than welcome to fill out components of this on your own, and just know that the RCD is available to assist with any of that. There's also inspection forms that are required for those who have to comply with this permit, your daily inspections, and storm event preparation forms, basically like visual inspections that you typically do. It's just now documenting that. In addition to an example of a manure tracking manifest. So folks that are hauling off manure would need to document where it is going and how often it goes there. And that is something you keep on site with you within your plan. But something, if you're not documenting it regularly, that would be a requirement. A link to that Morgan shared already, a link to the permit and that applies here. And then below, we just have several equine fact sheets that might be useful for folks. So I just wanted to highlight that and let you know that's available. It's public. You can go in and download stuff and snoop around and get some information there. So that's the end of what I was going to share. So if folks did have any follow-up questions for any of us, otherwise we'll work on getting this presentation posted hopefully sometime next week, and we'll send out an email to everyone who registered with the link to where you can find it. So I'll just pause for a moment and see if anyone has any last questions. Okay, well, hearing none, thank you for those who are able to attend today, and that will wrap up the information that we're sharing. Morgan or Ari, did you have any last minute comments or anything that you wanted to share?
Thank you all for coming today. We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Terry. You're saying that you'll post the recording to your sources as well. That would be great. Okay, well, thanks all. And again, get in touch with any of us if you have questions, and we're happy to be a resource for you.
If
Thank you. Thank you.